They're coming to get you, Barbara. Look, here's one of them now. Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man at your grungy, gnarly, deadhead destroying services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very, very well. And welcome to a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania when the dead have risen from the graves due to something we don't really know. But it spawned, after Night of the Living Dead, a dawn, a day, a land, a diary, a survival, and yet to come, a Twilight of the Dead. All the brainchild of writer-director, filmmaker extraordinaire, enfant terrible, George A. Romero. 1968, George Romero and his Latent Image group have been working for commercials, industrial movies, and have made a bit of moolah and gained some equipment and some experience with TV crews and with filmmaking in general. And he thought, hang on a second, why don't we make a movie? And what kind of movies sell? Well, sex, rock and roll, and violent horror movies, drive-in fodder. So they got to work, or rather George Romero got to work, and he wrote a short story called Night of Anubis. Anubis is the Egyptian god of the dead, and it was based very, very largely, or influenced very largely, by Richard Matheson's great I Am Legend. You're hearing the score to the first version of I Am Legend right now, The Last Man on Earth, with Vincent Price in the lead role. And in that story, apocalypse has taken place, and one man is left to battle the hordes and legions of the undead. And in the book, and in that first movie, they are vampires. So Romero thought, I want to tell that story, but Matheson's telling the story of like, the end of the world's already happened. You've got one guy left who's fighting for his own survival. I don't want to tell that story. I want to tell the story of how it began, how people reacted at the very first influence of the dead rising. But I don't want vampires. It's been done to death, pardon the pun. Let's do zombies. So, the undead, the ghouls from the grave, the recently deceased have risen with an insatiable lust for human flesh, living human flesh. And if you get a bite from one of these and you survive, you're going to die and become one of them. In fact, if you die anyway, you're going to become one of them. That's the thing about it. And you have to deactivate the brain, put a bullet in the brain, kill the brain, you kill the ghoul. It's very interesting to note that in the movie, they're not called zombies. They're never once referred to as zombies. That came in Dawn of the Dead, barely 10 years later. And they're ghouls or creatures or those things out there. Or these assassins, armies of assassins as they get monikered in the frequent TV and radio broadcasts that we hear in the movie. So, he writes Night of Anubis. And I think, okay, right, we can get this film together. We get local friends and people that we know who can play the actors and the characters, and they can do all the stuff behind the scenes. We're all acquainted with camera gear, editing, special effects, albeit very meagre, fledgling special effects, and production design. We can all chip in together, and we all put some money in as well. And if every single person involved can get at least one other person to invest in this, then hey, we're on to a winner. Then we just strike up a distribution deal and jobs are good 'un. Also, George Romero thought. George and his good buddy John Russo, another screenwriter and producer, and their friend Carl Harbin. So you had the Latent Image group and Carl Harbin Productions. And Carl Harbin was a good friend of theirs, and he would appear in the movie as well. So they formed a new consortium called Image 10, because there was 10 members of this, and they put Night of Anubis into action. And of course, we know it as Night of the Living Dead. Now, the story he wrote was a short story, but it was huge in scope. It actually covered events that you'd see in Dawn and perhaps a little bit of Day of the Dead as well. So they thought, well, we'll focus on the first part of that story, and we'll tell the initial takeover, the initial plague descending upon the countryside and all of the northeastern third of the United States, as we keep hearing, and just focus on that, so it's more localized. Of course, they didn't have any idea the film would be successful enough to spawn what was going to be a trilogy, which then became a quadrilogy, quintology, something else, and you've got another one coming as well. So I don't know what you'd call it now, just a franchise. And oh, don't mind if I do. Cheers, you all. It's amazing what you find in the cooped, claustrophobic environment of a rural farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. I didn't find any whiskey though, unfortunately. But cheers, you all. So they condense down his story. They get the actors. They find the location. Now, don't forget, they're always Pittsburgh-based Romeroian cohorts. They're all from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. So they journey literally 30 minutes out of Pittsburgh, and you get to a place. You go north. You go into Butler County, and you find Evans City. It's not really a city. It's just a little town, a little hamlet. And you find a fantastic graveyard there, which they can use. And the most pivotal location in it, a farmhouse, an isolated farmhouse, deep in the fields and the trees, cut off from everywhere. And our main battle will take place within that farmhouse. Right, so they sojourn and they film in, I think, July and then into November of 1967. And then in January of 1968, the film was released in 1968. But they had to work around everyone else's normal working schedules. Everyone else had jobs, so they had to work around all this, work at night, work at weekends, or whenever they had a day off, just do stuff whenever you could. And it's proper guerrilla style filmmaking. Seat of your pants, off the cuff, off the rails. And I love it, and it comes across in the movie as this kind of guerrilla style. Anyway, so what happens? We all know the plot of this, but it's classic. You've got Barbara and Johnny, two squabbling siblings who've made the drive. In the film, they've made a 3-hour drive to the cemetery in Evans City, way outside the city, to lay a wreath on their father's grave, something they do every year, and they don't like doing it. It's a hell of a trek, and especially they make a big point of the hour going forward, so they've lost an hour already, and it's a 3-hour trip from where they are to the cemetery. Can't we just move the body nearer to Mum so she can visit herself then, because the mother never makes the trip? But they're there anyway, and they've got another 3-hour journey back. And it's nice that the cemetery is not gothic, dark and gloomy. It's broad daylight, although there is a storm brewing. You've got that, as Johnny will react to lightning bursts and thunder crackling behind him. But they argue. He starts teasing Barbara about when they were younger, that he used to hide behind a tree and jump out on her, and that really scared you, and Grandpa used to say, "Damn that kid to hell," And then he says, "You're still scared, aren't you?" She's like, "Stop it, you're acting like a child." You're still scared, aren't you, Barbara?" "They're coming to get you, Barbara." She's like, "Stop it, you're ignorant." And you see a shambling ghoul in the background, who's very clearly, we know, that's a zombie. But they don't know that, it's just a guy walking there. And I like the fact that Johnny, who's played by Russell Striner, whose brother also worked on the movie. The Striners were heavily involved, including the car that they drove up in. That's the Striner boy's mother's car. So more on that in a bit. He's putting his driving gloves on. He's a bit of a cool cat. He's putting his driving gloves on, his leather drivers. And he keeps looking over at this shambling thing, which is just lumbering through the gravestones. If you were there, we back onto a cemetery, and I'm in that cemetery every day with the dog. And if I saw someone acting like that, I'd be like, "That's a zombie. There's no two ways about it. He's an undead." But they just get on with it. And he said, "They're coming to get you, Barbara. Look, here's one of them now. He's going to get you. I'm getting out of here." And he runs away. So Barbara then walks down the aisle towards this guy with an idea of she's kind of nervously looking at him, but I want to apologise for my brother's stupid antics. And then suddenly the first zombie in Romero's cycle, played by Bill Hinsman, known as the cemetery zombie, although you'll see him throughout the movie, even at the very end you'll see him. He goes for her, and she's like, she's screaming, and Johnny's like, "What the hell?" Goes in, massive tussle. She manages to break away, but Johnny, his glasses come off, his face is getting clawed by Bill Hinsman's zombie, and in another tussle, Johnny hits the deck, but before his head hits a tombstone first, boom, with a really solid, horrible boom on the soundtrack. You go, oh God, he's dead. And then Bill Hinzman's zombie doesn't chow down on him. That's fresh meat, but no, the rules haven't been set yet. But he sees Barbara, played by Judith O'Dea, and he legs it after her at a staggering, but he's quite going for it. She'll fall down a couple of times, her shoes will come off. She gets into the car, but Johnny's got the keys, so the car won't start. Next thing you know, our zombie friend is there. He's trying to get in. The zombies in Night of the Living Dead are a lot more proactive. They pick up stuff, they use it as tools. They're a bit more energetic when need be. And Bill Hinzman is really rocking this car and going for it. He picks up a rock like that. Bash, bash, smashes the passenger side window. She manages to get, oh no, what does she do? She pulls the handbrake off and the car just trundles down the track. Now, Russell Strand's mother, that's her car, a Pontiac I think it is, and she pranged it just before the filming began, so all of one side's dented in. So Romero and co thought, we can use that because that car's gonna, well, with editing, we'll make it look like it's hit a tree. Boom! So we move the camera around and we see a big dent in there. That's cut down on production costs and even stunt work. So that dent has become part of the story. But the zombie still comes after her. So she gets out the car and she legs it onto the main road. Great shot actually of her running. And she's barefoot now, running across, that can't be easy. Running through undergrowth and brambles and then onto the tarmac of the road. But she's legging it, keeps looking over her shoulder. Crosses the fields and sees the farmhouse. Da-da, fate, the farmhouse. And then she gets in there and she's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, finding bowls of porridge and testing the beds out and all that. But if you look in this sequence, you can see the films that have influenced Night of the Living Dead and the films that Night of the Living Dead would then influence. She sees stuffed animal heads on the walls, which reminds you of Psycho, of course. And also would then bleed into the likes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre with their farmhouse and the cabin in the woods with Evil Dead, namely Evil Dead 2. In the cupboards, you'll see Lipton's tea. Lipton's tea was big at the time, but it featured heavily in Psycho and in Psycho 2, Lipton's tea. So you've got all this connections there, and a haunted sort of southern gothic. Well, it's not southern, it's northeastern, but it may as well be a southern gothic because it's just a farmhouse, an old colonial style farmhouse. Now let's talk about this place. This place was about to be condemned. The owners of it, the water was turned off, there was no electricity on it, so nothing at all, no resources, and it was stripped bare as well. And Romero approached them, could we use this for filming? They said, yeah, but it's going to cost you X amount per month. So suddenly their production costs were going up. And not only that, this place was plagued with, as I get his name, Vince Suvinsky, who's actually in the movie as well, was the production designer on it. And he brought all the things that you see inside that farmhouse, all the furnishings and fittings, he put them all in there. And while some crew members would stay over at night, it was really hot when he first started filming, and it was filled with bugs, rats, spiders, mosquitoes, and he bloody hated it. So he said, I couldn't sleep in that farmhouse. I'd sleep in the car outside, or literally just on the grass outside. I could not go in that place and stay there. But it looks lived in. It looks really well furnished. It doesn't look like they've just gone in there like this and just pure renegade style, just filled it with stuff just for the sake of filming. It looks like a lived-in property. So hats off to Vince for the production values there. As she's creeping round, she goes up the stairs and she sees, lying on its side, a half-eaten corpse of the woman who obviously owned the place is lying there like this, one eye bulging, a skull and flesh mangled. Screams, runs outside in a panic, and she's picked up a kitchen knife as well, because in the meantime Bill Hinzman's found his way across the fields and together with some other zombies is now prowling around outside because he knows his dinner's in there. And another very reminiscent scene, which you'll see in Evil Dead 2. Bill Hinsman's zombies going around the side of the farmhouse, and there's like a clothesline and something else which gets in his way, and he angrily tears it all down and makes a meal of it on camera. Bruce Campbell, while he's as Ash in Evil Dead 2, well, I could barely say those words. Bruce Campbell as Ash in Evil Dead 2, when he's possessed, he does the exact same thing when he's chasing the girl into the cabin, and he makes a trellis and something, and he really milks it. He's doing Bill Hinsman in that sequence. But she's got a knife, and she's seen the corpse now. That's it. Her mind has just gone blah. Legs it outside into the blazing headlights of a truck which has just pulled up, driven by our hero Ben, played by Dwayne Jones, black man Dwayne Jones. Why do I say black man? It's important because his active role as a leading man in this movie, as the hero, the no-nonsense, cunning, resourceful hero, was obviously at a time when films were not often showing people of ethnic origin in a good light. You had race riots, civil rights movement was all in massive flux at the time, but Romero didn't think about that. That didn't enter his head. They had several people come in for the audition to play the role of Ben, and he just was the best one. And he said, yeah, Ben, that's our Ben. In the script, it didn't say whether he's white or black or Chinese or whatever. There was no reference to it. And the fact that he is black is not made any reference to in the movie whatsoever. Despite all the arguing and the bickering that was to take place and the hatred, the prejudices don't rear their ugly head in that manner at all. And it's brilliant. Of course, reviewers would have to remark upon it at the time, and it's still cited all these many years later as being a catalyst, for black actors. And Romero never thought of that. Dwayne Jones never thought about it at all. It just happened to be that's who was the best guy for the role, and he is outstanding. And it did spark, obviously with Dawn of the Dead, Ken Foree playing Peter, the SWAT team trooper, black man again. Terry Alexander in Day of the Dead, the helicopter pilot from the Caribbean, don't you know? Because of Dwayne Jones and the effect it had on popular culture and movies and the whole critical circuit, Romero thought, well, I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to do it again and again and again. And that's what he did do. And it works brilliantly. So she now meets Ben. And Ben's got a tire iron in his hand. The zombies are now, there's more of them out there. They're drawn to the farmhouse for some reason. And he pushes her back inside. And he's trying to ask her, is this your house? She's tried the phone beforehand and just gets like a dial-in tone. And he goes, I'm sure you've tried this, haven't you? Get to dial-in tone. Shh. Is there any weapons here? Is there anybody else here? How long have they been out there? What's your name? And she's lapsing into catatonia. And she's very convincing. For all these people who are not mainstream actors, you had a couple. Dwayne Jones had acted before, and Judith O'Dea, who plays Barbara, she'd acted before as well, sort of semi-professional. But all the rest, no, they're not actors at all. Friends, family, associates, and they do a damn good job as well. It's realism, a naturalistic sort of style to it, with a couple of exceptions, but we'll come on to those. Well, don't mind if I do. By the way, this was meant to be a really epic review. It might still turn out to be that way, but I've got to have a tooth extracted in, well, a couple of hours time. So I'm going to have to race through this. I know that, but let's get it done. So, do you live here? Is this your house? And no, she can't respond. He's like, we've got to board the place up, barricade it. So he starts, there's a load of great sequences in this where they will destroy furnishings, split them apart, and then bash them in as barricades around the many doors and windows. This is a big place, this. And if you look closely, again, Vince Savinsky had took these things off, and because some of the barricades will have to be pulled apart and then replaced again, they'd write upper right hand of window in living room, and you'd see it. If you look in the film, you can see when they do, later on in the movie, when they're replacing some of the boards, you can see where it's meant to go. And Dwayne Jones, by his own admission, was absolutely shite at DIY, couldn't knock a nail in at all. So what they had to do, they had to pre-drill the holes and mark them, so when he's doing it, he could put the nail through the hole and just bash straight in. He couldn't do it any other way. He was really naff, cack-handed, and yet Ben comes across as super resourceful and resilient. So they're doing all this, but in the meantime, zombies, more of them arriving, because there's 3 of them out there. And he looks again, I don't know, I think there's 5 or 6 of them out there. Where did you come from then? Have you got a car? And she's just sitting there. Her mind has just completely collapsed. And he's got his tyre iron, so he realises they don't like fire. I know that, because he's gone out to the car with a torch and all that, and they don't like the fire at all. So they're backing away. So he douses an armchair in kerosene and puts it on the veranda, sets fire to it, and boots it off. But he will have a siege on his hands in these early moments. The zombies will mount an attack, and he will have to fight them with this tyre iron. And he realises he's got to smack them on the head. Bang, 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 bang. And another one's coming up behind him. Rolls around with that one. Bang, bang, bang. And he's doing all this, and he's wafting his torch around to drive the other ones off. They've also smashed the headlights on a truck that he drove up in. Not his truck, by the way. He found it. But they're using rocks to smash the headlights. They don't like the light. Again, Romero's rules of the zombies, they're just a foundation stone here. These zombies grunt and moan. They react to fire. They can be very quick in a fight, but they pick up tools and things. Whereas you would see a progression in the zombie movies. Obviously Bub and then Big Daddy in Land of the Dead, who are intelligent zombies who will act with thought and process and reasoning. Then have to use firearms, and lead an army of zombies and almost discover a conscience of their own. Well, here, I think you get around that because they are not evolved, but these are very freshly revived. So memories are still intact, rudimentary memories, I suppose. Romero doesn't make this clear at all, but in the overall continuity of it, I think you can easily make a play for that. I pick up this, I can smash that and get to that. I want to eat you in there. I'll need this to get through this barricade to get to you. That's their thought process. So he has a tussle with all these, but the back door's open, and as he's getting his breath back, another zombies come into the house. And of course, Barbara's just sitting there, and it's coming up behind her. And the way it's moving is really good, and it's The makeup is done by a couple of the actors in the movie, who again, we haven't met them yet. And it's just grey and white sort of face paint is on them to give them a cadaverish look. As the film goes on, they start using derma wax, a mortician's wax. Tom Savini himself would use derma wax in his earlier movies. And the great Dick Smith, makeup extreme supremo, makeup expert supremo, but he's extreme with it. Would use derma wax as well. But it's horrible stuff because when it's stuck on your skin, you have to really prise it off. And actors have said it feels like it's tearing your flesh literally off your face. So it's not a pleasant tool to use. But of course, Ben comes in, sees this other zombie. His trusty tyre iron's there again. Bang! But the two of them fall over. Ben keeps ending up on the deck with these things. So he will say that, one or two, they're easy to, you overpower them. It's when there's many of them, you get surrounded by them, you're in trouble then. But they're easy, I can take care of this, I can take care of that. He keeps saying this in the early stages, but he keeps ending up on the floor, rolling around with them. And he's trying to reach for the tyre iron, and the thing's going, trying to bite his arm. And finally he gets the tyre iron again. And in a really, you are the zombie, and he drives it, right into its fod. And then, and you see a chunk of flesh go out of the hole in its head. And as Barbara's watching, he's like, I've got to barricade this place again. That was too close. And he'll drag this body out. Its eyes are still moving. See, I don't know if that's a fuck up or or it's meant to be the fact that he's grabbed its legs and some kind of muscle is still working, its eyes are twitching. Because it's been stabbed right through, impaled right through the brain, so it should be deaded, completely deaded. But he drags it out, sets fire to its body, and heaves that off, again to keep the now growing number of zombies away. In his early sequences, watch how every time you cut to a shot outside of the zombies, you've got a couple of them milling around. Each time you cut back to them, there's more in the background. It's subtle, but it really works. And like, there's more and more each time. Where they're coming from, God only knows. But anyway, they managed to find the radio, turn the radio on. And he's just spent hours barricading. And like, are you going to help me or what? Like, woman, Jesus. You do get a great moment where she does sort of erupt. She comes out, snaps out of her catatonia, and she's going like, look, Johnny's out there. You know, look, we're not going anywhere. Johnny's out there. My brother Johnny. We've got to go and get Johnny. You know, he's hurt. He needs us. And Ben's just like, look, if he's out there, he's dead. Sorry, but he's dead. We're not going anywhere. We're staying here until someone comes to rescue us. But Johnny, and he's like, no. He's trying to calm her down. And then she goes, psh, slaps him in the face. So he just goes, fuck off. And she goes back. But she doesn't go down poleaxed. She stands there for a minute. Like, and then he catches her and he puts her on a settee. You'll see her later on. She has got bruising on the jawline where he's clocked up on. Yeah, but he did it for the right reasons. And he is a compassionate person to a degree. And he makes her comfortable and all that. Anyway, as he's busying himself, they find food, they find the radio. They know that this is not just confined to there. It's in other areas as well. But no one can work out what's happening. The assassins, this army of assassins, eyewitnesses say they're in a trance and they seem to be just attacking people. There's no reason, no rhyme. They look like ordinary people, but they're clearly not. It's an army of assassins who this homicidal mania has gripped, you know, all this part of the USA and possibly elsewhere. So like, Jesus Christ. He goes, look, I'm going to search around upstairs. And he finds in a cupboard a Winchester 1894. And he finds the bullets as well. Oh, yeah, yes. There would be a gun there. We've already met the, oh yeah, because he goes up and he's got to get the body of the one who's nibbled up on the upstairs landing. So he takes that body out. I mentioned the eyes moving. I think on the previous one with the tire iron in his head, you can put it down to just him moving the body and it's just twitching. But Barbara does watch that and she's like, because the eyes are still sort of flickering. Anyway, so he's dealt with the bodies, he's found a rifle, brilliant stuff, and he's boarded up everywhere downstairs. But as Barbara comes to and sits there, and he's upstairs, he says, like, look, anything happens down here, I can hear it and I'll be down within a second. The big shock comes. The door begins to open, the door handle's rattling, and she hears sounds behind the door, and she's like that. And a hand comes round the door, and pushes it open, and in comes the people who've been downstairs in the basement the entire bloody time, and you didn't know they were there. Yes, it's Harry Cooper, the cantankerous, curmudgeonly Harry Cooper, and played by Carl Harmon, the production designer, the guy who put so much money into it as well, and he plays this grade A bastard, who along with his wife Helen and their daughter Karen, played by Carl Harmon's real life daughter Kira Sean, I think her name was, and another young couple, Tom and Judy, down there. Not Tom and Jerry. Wouldn't that be incredible though? You'd have zombies falling into mouse traps all the time, and like frying pans in the face, all this. But so Harry comes up with Tom, and they're like, because who's up here? Who's up here? And like, Carl Harmon as Harry looks like a cross between oh God, Jack Nicholson and Donald Pleasance. He's balding, but he's got a really Weasley sort of face, and he's a Weasley sort of character as well. So they announce their presence. Of course, Barbara screams. Ben runs down, like so. It's a standoff, but it's like, well, you're clearly human. You're not those things out there. So they announce, yeah, we've been downstairs. Well, why didn't you come up and help me? I could have done with some assistance. You must have heard this other noise we were making. Well, we didn't know what you were, whether you're just those things out there. I said, well, you heard the radio. You've got a radio. You've heard her screaming. You must know a girl scream. That means someone needs help. Well, I didn't know she needed any help. And why should I help her anyway? Like, so Harry's already a bastard. Tom, who's played by, Keith Wayne, who was a local DJ, quite a zany DJ as well. And he's pretty good, but he's not an actor, you know. But it doesn't matter. They're caught in a nightmare scenario and people are just saying ridiculous things. Harry and his wife, played by Marilyn Eastman. Marilyn, who gets the trowel attack. Infamous, notorious. That's his wife. The two of them do not get along in the movie. They clearly were at loggerheads to begin with, and their relationship will just devolve even further. Well, in reality, the two of them couldn't act. So George A Romero said, look, I want you to improvise some lines, just say things. So, and even made up with the line delivery that they come out with is very arch and melodramatic. It's something you see in a TV sort of pot boiler, you know, a movie of the week sort of thing. And he said that works because it heightens the situation. In contrast to like the nightmarish things taking place, this mundanity of their ridiculous relationship sort of brings it down a notch and it elevates all the spectacular stuff as well. So it works in an EC Comics sort of style. So they come across actually pretty well. I like them both. I should say that Ben has explained to Barbara, who when she was just staring in a trance, that he was down the road at Beatman's Diner. You know Beatman's Diner? Are you from around here? Do you know? And I jumped into that truck I got out there, and because I heard the radio, I wanted to hear what was going on. And then this gas truck came around the bend, being chased by 10, 15 of those things, and he ploughed across the road, and he went through a petrol pump. By the time he was a moving barbecue, you know, and obviously it goes up, foreshadowing what will happen later in the movie, precisely. And he said those things, they didn't care. And then I went to go back to the diner to see if anyone could help, but by then there's like 50 of those things just staring in at the diner, just motionless. And I got in the truck and I drove through those things. I just wanted to crush them, and he scattered like bugs, you know. And that's how I came here. And the reason why he pulled in there, he said, I'm not used to driving that truck. I'm not a truck driver. Interestingly, in the original Night of Anubis short story, Ben didn't have a name, but he was just known as truck driver. And he was meant to be a truck driver. Tough, resilient, you know, resourceful, but could drive a truck. But Ben is anything but that. So but there's a petrol pump out there. Do you know where the keys are for the petrol pump? Because we need to get get gas into the truck, and we can drive out and go to one of these rescue centres and all that. So, but no one knows where the keys are for the pump and all that. But now they've got this other bunch of people from downstairs. They're going like, well, is the keys down there? Well, maybe there are. But listen, I reckon we all go down to the cellar and board ourselves in there. It's safer down there, says Harry Cooper. And this is the thing. This is the main crux that Romero gets at. You've got the threat outside, the ominous threat of zombies that are going to tear you apart and devour you. But you hole up somewhere with other people and you will end up fighting amongst yourselves. Mankind does this all the time. We cannot trust one another. We can't work together. In some cases we do, but that takes training, you know, and a much more cultivated attitude towards cooperation. In situations like this where people are flung together, they don't do it. Lawlessness takes over. Romero's not really going too far with that, but he's going with it. Look, Harry wants, they're safer in the basement. That's, you know, we can board it up, it's only one way in. And Ben's like, but there's only one way out. And if the zombies get in there, you've got no escape. No, it's better off up here. We've got a radio, we've got food, we've got everything up here. Well, no, I think we're safer down there. And of course, poor young Tom is caught up in the middle of this. Come on, Tom, we're coming down there. Bring that girl as well. She's not going anywhere. Don't you touch her, mister. Look, you want to go back down that death trap. That's up to you. But I'm not stupid enough to follow you. And you leave her, you leave all the things up here because I'm staying up here and I'm fighting for myself, the girl, and everything that's up here. So you can fuck off downstairs, I don't care about you. And this argument will extend throughout much of the rest of the movie, becoming quite a moot point in the end, because it won't matter where you are. And Ben's right, you know, if you find yourself in a scenario like this, you need to have exits, not one, but several escape plans. Okay, zombies, they're not thinking. They're just gonna shamble around. By sheer weight of force, they might break through, but then you get out a different way. But if you're in that basement, there is only one way out, and that's the way that you got in. So the zombies get in there, you're fucked. So you can stay down there indefinitely, I suppose, if you had food and water, but who's going to say the zombies are going to get bored and go away? They might stay there, which means you're still trapped. No, the basement, I'm with Club Ben, Team Ben, that's the way it goes. Upstairs, you've got a chance. But Harry's sensational. He's like, there's so many windows and doors, you can't board anything up. You know, they'll get through it. They're going to get through one way or the other. You know, then you're going to fight to come down to the basement. Oh, I'm not going to let you come down there. You come down now, you don't come at all. But it's realistic. That's what people would be like. Anyway, they find the telly. Oh, Harry goes back down to see his wife and his daughter. His daughter, who I should say, is injured. Their car has been overturned by a bunch of zombies, and they manage to fight their way back and get to the farmhouse where Tom and Judy sort of arrive just after them. A similar scenario. And but the daughter's been bitten, and she's just lying there, you know. You get the odd word, "Mummy, it hurts, I'm cold." That's it. And they're trying to care for her. So Harry's got a lot on his plate. He's got a wife and an ill daughter, an injured daughter. So he's not thinking straight. You know, he's hardly a battle-hardened SWAT team operator, is he? You know, he's thinking of his family first. But so he's arguing with everybody, and he's arguing with Tom. And but meanwhile upstairs, Ben's found a telly, so they shout down to him, you know, "Mr. Cooper, come upstairs now, bring everyone, Ben's found a telly." So they put the telly on, and you see the first of several brilliantly done TV emergency channel broadcasts. Did I write the name of the guy down? I don't think I did actually. Who does all the broadcasts? I think his name is Craig something or other. I don't know. Craig something or other, let's leave it at that. And he was a local sort of radio host, presenter. So but now he's got a chance to have his face on screen as well. And we're just getting reports in of so-and-so city. The victims are being partially devoured. These assassins are eating the flesh of their victims. It's increasingly preposterous. And there's people in the background, and like teletypes coming in, and the bits of paper being pushed across. There's great big old tape spools going like this around. And they formulate, look, they appear to be dead people. The bodies of the recently deceased are coming back to life and attacking living human victims, and they are eating the flesh of their victims. Now, throughout all this, because you'll get successive bulletins, there's references made to a Venus probe returning, which was huge, showing a huge dose of radiation. So NASA, in their infinite lack of wisdom, has destroyed it. And I think you hear the Atlantic Ocean at some point gets mentioned, but they reference this a couple of times, and like that's some excuse. Now, in reality, Romero said, look, every film we watched, every drive-in movie, every horror movie, sci-fi movie, gave an explanation for the aliens, for the blob monster, for this, for that. They gave explanations, and he said, I realised audiences have to have some reason why things are happening. And he said, I never wanted to do that. I didn't want to give any explanation, but I thought, well, we're going to have to put something in there, but we'll do it in sort of obtuse sort of fashion. So it could be that, but there's no hard, fast evidence to support it. So he said, we'll leave this Venus probe thing in there, just let people, if they want to make that connection, it's up to them. But as far as I'm concerned, and I created it, there's no explanation. And apparently there was a few other ideas, but it's the Venus one. I thought that's the most abstract. There's no real connection, but we'll stick with that one. So if you choose to believe it, it's the radiation from the Venus probe which caused the dead to come back to life. Or is it, Macumba, voodoo? Granddaddy was a priest in Trinidad. That's from Dawn for you. Oh, the dawn of a new can of Foster's. Cheers, y'all. I think I'll be drinking a lot of whiskey later when I have that tooth taken out. Jesus Christ. First ever amputation from my body. Literally. I've had that tooth all my life. And now it's gone rogue. It has to be removed. God. Yeah. So the zombies are outside, right? Of course they are. There's a few other moments of the zombie hands coming through. A huge motif in the Romero movies and most zombie movies, let's be honest. The clutching hands. Well, you get that a lot in this movie, and then in Dawn and in Day. All these hands are coming through barricades, the windows, and all this. And as Ben's walking past, one clutches for him. He's got the rifle, and here's where you realise that pumping bullets into him ain't going to do any good. And it just goes, and looks up again, and they're going, another chest shot, just looks up again. It's a Winchester, no, underlever. And it flies back. Bullet hole in its head, like young Mr. Kentucky Fudge is sporting here. He's got a bullet hole in his head there, but that won't stop him. The rogue that he is, delinquent. And it's lying there, and in the drifting light, the porch light, the shadow goes across, and the shadow comes back, and you see the bullet hole, and all the Bosco chocolate syrup, because that's what the blood is, folks. It's Bosco chocolate syrup, and he picked that because it looks, as we already said, it looks really good in black and white photography. The film is black and white, 35mm, because of budgetary constraints. Keep the budget down. A budget of $114,000. Nothing by today's standards. In fact, it wasn't much by 1968 standards either, but that was a lot for them. So, Bosco chocolate syrup. And to be honest, it looks good in some shots, but it is very dark. It's very, very black, especially when Marilyn Eastman gets troweled to death. It's very, very black then. But anyway, they realise, well, Ben's a bit slow on the uptake here. I put 2 bullets in its chest, it didn't stop it. I put a bullet in its head, that killed it. He will shoot others in the chest and forget to shoot the brain. Ta-da! By now, you've seen more and more zombies, including the infamous Life model, I forgot her name, who walks around nudie nudes. Yes. So you've got a bit of nudity in the movie as well, and she's lovely. You see her from behind, you see her little top bits as well, and she's just walking amongst all the other zombies. With all Romero's movies, he's had no problem getting people to act as zombies. Even this movie, which came out of nowhere and was just this guerrilla style film encampment, half an hour out of Pittsburgh. Everyone was joining in. All the locals were there. Oh, this would be great. Don't mind putting the makeup on, eating bugs off trees, walking around in the buff, getting blown apart with chocolate syrup. No one seemed to mind. And from that point onwards, in Dawn, they have problems. You've got to stop them coming in. We've got too many zombies. Please go back to your homes, folks. Nothing to see here. We've got enough, But people want to be part of it. And they were donating things all the time. Like the truck, right? The truck. So we've got to get to that gas pump and fill it up, and then we can get out of here. So me and this is Ben and Tom are going to drive out there. They find the keys to the gas pump. Right, right, brilliant, because they were down in the basement and all that. Right. So me and Tom are going to go out there. Well, how are we going to come back? Well, of course we're going to come back. They're going to fill it up, they're going to come back, pick you guys up, and off we go. Simple as that. Now you, Harry, you bastard, Molotov cocktails, get in one of the top windows and just keep hailing them at the zombies. Then we can get out, get in the truck, and off we go. There isn't much gas in the truck, that's why they have to go and do this. Right? Remember what I said about Beaton's Diner, which Ben witnessed the gas truck bursting into flames and everyone being flambéed there. It's going to happen again, isn't it? So Judith, played by, I wrote her name now, of course, Judith Ridley, Tom and Judy, but Judy played by Judith Ridley. So you've got 2 Judiths in this. Judith O'Day, who plays Barbara, and Judith Ridley. She runs out as well, and Carrie can't stop her. And he's got, oh, Jesus, because Ben's going to ride in the back of in the bed of the truck with its torch to keep them all at bay. And as they drive up, like Judy gets in there as well. Well, come on then, off we go. Harry's chucking Molotov cocktails down, and one zombie does go up in flames. He's like, writhing about, and they drive off. Some zombies are hanging on to the bumpers, being dragged across the fields, and they get there. The petrol pump's not that far away, and they get there, and they can't fucking get the keys to work to unlock the pump. So Ben just goes like, just step aside, blows the lock off it. Fucking dangerous that. And but Tom, in all his excitement, spills gas all over the deck and forms a gas line from the petrol pump to the truck. And Ben's put the torch on the deck to keep the zombies at bay, ignites it, so the tyres are on fire, and Tom's like, oh shit, gotta get it away from the pump, otherwise the whole thing is gonna go kaboom. So he gets in, Judy's in there as well, and they drive up, and Ben's like, oh fucking hell, you know, and he's got the torch and all that, and as he watches, the fucking truck, just, the whole thing's on fire, and like, right, we've got to get out of here. They've only got about 50 yards away, so Tom gets out, but Judy's jacket, my jacket's caught, and like, as Ben and Harry watches from the window, oh, it's just that you go, oh no, boom, the whole lot goes up, fucking, oh, they're barbecued, and that truck was donated by someone locally, and they filled it with TNT, and the first take, the TNT went boom, but the truck, nothing much happened to the truck, so you had to do it all over again, and it's a big ball of flame and all that, and it's pretty spectacular for an ultra low budget movie, and apparently everyone turned out to watch this big explosion, and but Ben then has to battle his way back, and in the meantime Harry's fucking locked the front door and started to board it up again, the bastard, and he's about to get down to the cellar, and he's like, oh, a slight twinge of conscience, but not much. And it's like, Harry, Cooper, you bastard, and like Ben bursts through and just stares, and you get that look on Ben's face, you bastard, and like he has to try to stop the zombies coming in, so Harry comes over and the two of them, this is where you see upper right of front door, all the instructions on the back of these planks of wood, and they work together to fix that door, and then Harry sort of goes, I know what you're going to do now, and straight away Ben's like, a left hook, then a right, then another right, then picks him up, bang, another one, I got to throw you out there to those things, you know, and Harry's on the couch like that, a bit of blood, but look at the shock, the guilt and the fear on his face. This is raw actors that really don't know how to act properly, but they're giving it their all, and because of that you're getting this sort of virtuoso ensemble sort of performance, and it really does work. You do feel for them. Anyway, so it's all gone to rack and ruin here now. They watch outside. The zombies have now reached into what would be a flaming bloody hot truck, and they're picking out all the entrails and the guts, the hand and a foot of Tom and Judy. And then he conveniently sit outside so that the people in the farmhouse can see what they're doing, and they're eating. They're fighting over a big spool of intestines on the grass. Gnarly. No one had seen anything like that before. Nobody. I'll talk about the impact of the movie when it first came out, and the impact it still has, to be honest. It's black and white, but it still has a raw, visceral quality to it. And all this meat was donated by another investor who ran a franchise of butchers. So he said, like, offal, intestines, meat, you've got it. I'll truck loads into you. So they're all eating this, and they're having a good old time with it. And Ben will watch it and be like, oh, don't look out there, don't look out there. And of course you've got the TV broadcast saying, you know, that they eat their victims. You've also had, to go along with the Venus probe thing, Romero, Russo, the Striners and everybody decamped for like a day's filming in Washington DC, the real Washington DC. You've got the White House in the background down the road, And you've got George Romero playing himself without the big beard and without the big massive glasses he used to wear, looking very fresh-faced. He's playing a nagging journalist, and you've got scientists, and you've got a brigadier general who are getting into a limousine with the flags on the front, which they just mocked it up, and they got no permission to film it. They just fucking went ahead and did it. And so there's these things. Is it caused by the Venus probe? Well, we don't know. We're looking into that. We're doing everything we can, and they're harassing these scientists and generals who get into the car. We're doing everything we can. The Venus probe, we're investigating it now. Off they drive. So it just reinforces it, and it also it gives a bigger scope to a film which is very claustrophobic. You're just set in this rural enclave. That's it. This farmhouse. That is it for the cemetery. But then you get radio and you get TV broadcasts from a different studio, but it's still very insular. This now broadens the whole thing because there's other people walking by, you know, and other cars flitting about. So it's broadened everything. You've also heard now that we've got posses of people, local law enforcers who are out going to rescue people in isolated farmsteads and dwelling places, and they're gunning down the zombies. This is where you'll look, a blow to the head or a bullet to the brain. Kill the brain, you kill the ghoul. They've already had a scientist on the TV show who's going there. We got a fresh cadaver with no arms or legs, just a head and a trunk. Within minutes, its eyes opened and it began to move its trunk. It was alive. So you've got to deactivate the brain and all this. This is where you get all this from. And you'll now meet Sheriff McClellan, played by Vince Stavinsky. Hang on a minute. No, I'm lying. He's played by George Costanza, a local guy who couldn't act either. And they're all tooled up. If you look at the weapons on the posse, there's Lee Enfield, British Lee Enfield rifles there. There's hunting rifles. There's old Browning pistols. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that they've got, which they would have. Don't forget, these people are locals. They probably brought with them their own weaponry, their own hunting weapons. And they're going across the countryside and they're killing zombies. And now you meet, as well as George Costanza as the great Sheriff McClellan, who Romero said, look, I know you're going to have difficulty with. They had a few doubts. He looked the part, and he brought a lot of things to the film set. He was actively involved behind the scenes, but he thought, yeah, can you deliver your lines? So Romero said to him, look, keep your mindset on what you know as a character. What you got to shoot the zombies or burn them. Just keep that in mind. And he come up with one of the best lines. That was. He's being interviewed and he says, like, look, so these things, you know, you can burn them, you should, yeah, one on its own, no problem at all. Yeah, and you're sure, like, these are, you know, you can dispatch them quite easily. Oh, they're dead, they're all messed up. That's his line. You come up with it. And Romero was like, oh, genius, sir, like it. And who he's being interviewed by is Chilly Billy Cardille, who was the TV host presenter of Chiller Theatre. And he's in it a fair bit, and he promoted the movie on his own TV channel. He kept on bigging up this film, Night of the Living Dead, or Night of the Flesh Eaters it was called for a long time. But they had to change that due to another film called The Flesh Eaters coming out roughly the same sort of time. And so then Night of the Living Dead it became. Well, Chilly Billy really endorsed it, bigged it up. So it already had a following, not only locally and in Pittsburgh itself, but the entire, Pennsylvania really wanted to see this movie, and he was getting the name known out there. So he plays himself. He is, Chilly Billy interviewing the sheriff, and he's always there. And they're dead, they're all messed up. Yeah, use flames, they go up real easy. Yeah, blow to the head. Hey, Jeff, Tommy, get over this side of that bridge, will you? Sheriff McClellan keeps improvising little lines to talk to this posse of gun-toting, I was going to say rednecks. You shouldn't call them rednecks. Every reviewer, every critic says the countryside becomes awash with the undead, but pursuing them are the gun-toting, trigger-happy rednecks. They're not rednecks. These are policemen and deputies and concerned citizens who are going after them and trying to save other people. They're not, and Romero took umbrage with this because they're not rednecks, but they got termed as that. So when he made Dawn of the Dead, he made sure that they were rednecks who were having cookouts there. They were using zombies for target practice. You know, they were doing all, they're having fun, having a whale of a time. It's a big day out for them. That's, you went, well, okay, you think they're rednecks. I'll show you what rednecks would really be doing. And that's what he did with Dawn of the Dead. And it's brilliant as well. They've got country western music blaring out, haven't they? They're having loads of fun. Tons and tons of cans of ale. And they're all laughing and joking amongst themselves. Well, that this posse takes it all very seriously. And they are gunning down the zombies. And Chilly Billy is like, I think McClellan goes, is that fresh coffee you got there? Well, yeah, it is, yeah. But here, you take it because you've been working all night. Now, with these scenes, you get a sort of sense that there could be closure to it, which Romero did on purpose as well. Because, so, you know, obviously people are going to be like, there has to be some sort of end in sight. Otherwise, I'm walking out now, as some people did do anyway. I'm walking out right now. Because it's right from the word go in the cemetery, you start off at a point of absolute terror, and things only get worse from that point onwards. People don't get along, and even the heroes turn out to be, well, accidentally killing other people who shouldn't be killed, but we'll come on to all that. And a moment of bleakness becomes a moment, it ends in absolute despair and tragedy. So he said, you've got to give people a glimmer of hope. And so, as McClellan's being interviewed, he keeps on saying, like, look, so you're going to get this wrapped up? Well, we're going to be going at this overnight, but, you know, yeah, I think we can get this sorted out. We're in charge of the situation now. We caught a few of them things trying to get into a shack down the road. They must have thought that somebody was in there. We killed all of them, but there was nobody in there anyway. So even that, you could have told a story where, you know, oh my God, they got in there and they devoured the people inside, but then we got them and blew them all away. But no, there's even little notes, well, the zombies are making mistakes, so we can take care of them dead easy. Yeah, we'll get this all sorted out. We'll have it under control by tomorrow. We'll work through the night. Uh-oh. Anyway, back at the ranch, back at the farm. Oh dear God. Everything goes tits up, the power goes out. You've had another big argument downstairs. You've lost Tom and Judy. They now know that they've been eaten by the zombies. Ben and Harry really aren't getting along. Helen, the mother, comes up. They explain about what happened to their car and that the daughter was bitten. Ben's been putting two and two together. Who knows what kind of infection those things are carrying. You've already had that debate. You've seen the girl, but she doesn't, well, she hasn't moved yet, but she's going to. And another big argument ensues. And Harry's going to Helen, his wife, like, I've got to get that rifle. I need to get that rifle. And at some point, the zombies push through again, and Ben will drop the rifle, and Harry's like, I need to get that. Helen, a hand comes through, grabs Helen by the hair, and she's squealing. Barbara gets up to help. Suddenly, all the doors burst through, the windows burst through. Shit, it's all going horribly wrong. The zombies are getting in. Ben sees that he's trying to get the rifle. He picks it up. He's like, "We're going to that basement now. You know, you can stay up here and die." Ben manages to chuck a piece of wrecked barricade, knocks the gun out from his hands. Harry's like, "Oh shit!" Ben picks it up. Bang! Belly shoots Harry. Again, Ben's resourceful and cunning, but he ain't the sharpest tool in the box, is he? Always put one in the brain, you know. Duh, have you learnt that yourself? You've shot loads of these and they keep getting back up again until you put one through the noggin. And so Harry's like that, and he staggers down the stairs to the basement, and his daughter's there, and he's reaching over for like that, and it's actually quite heartbreaking because all he's trying to do really is look after his family, and he is misguided. He's got the wrong plan, the wrong idea, but he's doing it, well, for himself and them. And he's like, and down he goes. Obviously his wife's seen him get shot. She runs back downstairs to the basement. Poor Barbara gets dragged out. They're coming to get you, Barbara. But who is it that comes to get her in the end? It's Johnny. Johnny boy's come back, and there he is without his glasses on, but he's got his black leather driving gloves. Oh, and he reaches for it. And she's like, Judith O'Dea is superb in this. A catatonic trance, her sudden, hysterics work brilliantly. Her run from Bill Hinsman at the start, and Bill Hinsman's here again. You've seen him throughout the entire movie wandering around outside with all the other zombies. But the cemetery ghoul is there. Johnny grabs his sister, pulls her out. No, Johnny, no! And drags her out. But Bill Hinsman's right there. Because the one who killed him is there. And the two of them acting together to go and, well, you know what they're going to do. They're going to eat her alive. Oh my God. You think about that. You think about what Romero's movies show you. Yeah, the bikers get ripped apart and disemboweled in Dawn of the Dead. And obviously the soldiers get ripped to pieces in Day of the Dead. But you imagine all these hands at you, ripping at your skin and biting you. And you're not going to die straight away. You're going to feel all those bites and tears and rips until your jugular's gone or your heart's been pulled out. You're going to survive through a lot of that initial attack. Oh my God. And when you think she gets dragged out and the zombies all close on her, oh dear Lord. So Harry's gone down and died. What's her face? Marilyn Eastman, his wife Helen, she legs it downstairs and she goes down there, and what does she see? Her own daughter munching on the stump of an arm of the father. It's not the greatest effect, I'll be honest. It's very sort of very fake. How did she rip the arm off anyway? And she's eating chunks of his arm, and like the mother's like, oh my God, you know, Karen. And Karen gets up, sees her mother, and her mother falls over, boom, boom, and she's against the stairwell like that. And Karen picks up a trowel like that one and comes over with it like that. And in the great sort of psycho killing Marion Crane, Janet Leigh moment in the shower, it's brought down, piercing on the soundtrack, Bosco chocolate syrup spraying everywhere. You don't, she stabs a hell of a lot of times, and it's really shocking. And again, it's a moment where, why would a zombie do that? Why would it pick up a sharp implement to kill a victim? Why would it do that? They just, the instinct is just to grab them and bite them and tear them apart, not to use a tool. But again, I keep on saying, the rules are just being established in this movie. These are all freshly dead, so they've still got some rudimentary memories of certain activities and certain ways of dealing with situations. So you get this, and it's horrible. Lots of blood oozes out of her mouth, and it's a shocking sequence. A child has eaten its father and is now murdering its mother. Well, audiences went fucking apoplectic. Drive-ins, people were just mesmerised. Kids, a lot of young kids were there watching this movie. Because again, you know, American rating systems, and the kids were just in tears. I've read many accounts of people that on the Monster Kids site, that when he first saw this film, they're all old people now, but I never forget watching Night of the Living Dead. I was hooked from the opening scene, the bleakness of it all, the sci-fi sort of effect of the library music. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then the escalating levels of violence and gore. I sat there, my heart never moved. There was tears down my face, and I watched barbaric acts of cannibalism, and then the mother being killed with the trowel. I'll never get over that sequence. And to this day, it's still a very shocking sequence. Upstairs, Ben is now like, shit, the zombies are everywhere, and he starts backing towards the very one place he didn't want to go to, that he fought against all this time. I'm not going down, it's a death trap down there. He's got very little choice now. He starts backing towards the doorway to the cellar, and Karen, who's now got blood on her, starts coming towards him, and he's like, well, shit, and sees it, grabs it and throws her on the couch, and then shoots her, and then retreats down to the basement. Remember in Dawn of the Dead, where they get to the airport, the little rural tiny little airport, and Peter is in the sort of the shop part, gets a drink out the machine, but he hears noises behind the door, and two little kids come out, zombified kids, and he picks them up and he throws them on the couch and then blows them away. Very similar. Ben picks up the little girl, chucks her on the couch, shoots her. Peter, keep on calling him Roger, Peter, Ken Free, picks up the kids, throws them on the couch, blows them away. I like this sort of chain of repetition, little motifs used again. And he gets into the cellar, he's now locked himself in the one place he didn't want to be, and he staggers down the stairs, and of course he sees, you know, there's Harry missing an arm. There's a great big, very fake stump there, and Harry just gets up like that. So he's like, oh shit, bang, bang, puts him down like, and then as he's feeling sick to the pits of his stomach, turns around and he sees Helen troweled, and he's like, oh god. And another great moment, Helen's eyes open, and he's like, oh, throws the gun away, and then listens as the zombies rampage and ransack the fortress that he spent so long building up and defending. And he's like, that's it. Jesus. He just sits down. Then I think he just pick up the gun again and he just waits for the inevitable. Anyway, that was the Night of the Living Dead. We then move on to the dawn of Night of the Living Dead, the next dawn, and the zombies have gone. The sun's out, the birds are chirping, the zombies have gone. Well, what the hell? And like, dogs are out there. The dogs are with the posse, and the posse are busy gunning down zombies all across the fields. It's a great sequence, actually, great montage. And they come across the burnt remains of the truck, which became the Last Supper for Tom and Judy. And I think Vince. No, hang on. Yeah, let's get this right. I kept mentioning this guy, the production designer, Vince Savinsky. He's the member of the posse, and he says here, I think McLennan goes, somebody sure had a cookout here. They observed the remains of the charred corpses and the flambéed truck, and Vince goes, yeah, sure did. And he's not that convincing. He's got a smirk on his face, which you could put on. It's like, well, he's with a posse, he's a deputy, I'm having fun doing this. But it's not the most convincing of deliveries. But as they draw near to the farmhouse, McClellan's giving orders like, get them zombies over there, get those things, shoot them out, build me a bonfire in that field there, we've got to get rid of all these bodies, build me a bonfire. And Vince hears something in the farmhouse. He goes, heard something over there, because Ben has now heard the dogs barking. They've got dogs in the posse, German shepherds, and there's one there, and he's heard the gunfire and the voices. So he, almost in a trance himself, he takes the bolt off the cellar door, opens it. He's got his rifle with him, but as he walks towards the window to look through at who's coming to rescue him, he's just comatose. He's gone through a hell, of a night, and he's just there. And Vince just goes, look, I see something in the window there. And the sheriff goes, get him between the eyes. And Vince Savinsky has just killed our hero. Ben hits the deck. Our hero's just been wasted. After all he's been through, they've mistook him for a zombie and blown him away. Good shot, Vince. Yeah, let's hold him on for the barbecue. Get the hooks, go and drag him out. I mean, oh God, talk about nihilistic endings. But in a situation like this, people are just across the land and they're shooting indiscriminately. Some are probably using it as a petty way of, as a very extreme way of dealing with petty squabbles. No one's going to know. I hate that neighbour, I'm going to fucking blow his head off. And I say he was a zombie. You would get that. But accidental shootings, and it does happen as well, like especially in like sort of demilitarized zones, innocent people get blown away by accidental fire. Hunting season in America, hunters and innocent people get blown away by other hunters all the time. It's accidental. Bit silly, but it's accidental. So he's just assumed. Now, if they look closely, he's carrying a fucking rifle, a Winchester 1894, and you could say, hey, are you human? Are you all right? Just fine. Yeah, he's miles away. You're gonna have to shoot him straight away. But they do, because it's Romero saying, look, there's no end to this. There's no happy endings. This sort of thing, an apocalypse, a war, there's no happy endings for anybody. You think you're on the winning side will end up blowing you away as well. So they go in there, and in a series of really starkly horrible still frames, which are shot through really coarse cheesecloth to give it a really ultra grainy newsreel effect. They come in with the meat hooks. Oh, a bit like this. Oh, got one here. They come in with these and they hook into Ben's body. You drag him out, and they've built a bonfire, and you see them all in still photos. They put him on there, and you will see that Ben. Oops, that wasn't very clever. That's a great big hook there, which I bet I step on that later. Ben is lying next to Bill Hinsman's zombie, the cemetery zombie. The two of them are lying together. The zombie that started off and our hero who's been blown away at the end are lying together, and then the whole lot goes up. The credits come up, and then you cut to like a final live filmed section of just the fire raging, and night has ended. A film that blew away an entire generation, and then successive generations, became a huge cult phenomenon, and didn't make George Romero any money at all, because they made a horrendous gaffe in the copyright. They missed off one line in the copyright, which meant that anyone could distribute the movie. So with the advent especially of home video, VHS, Betamax, and then obviously DVDs, a gazillion companies did release their own version of Night of the Living Dead. Some colorized, some with extra scenes put in. The infamous anniversary one, I think was it the 30th anniversary, 25th anniversary DVD, Bill Hinsman, the cemetery zombie. They brought him back to show how he became a zombie. And of course, he's a much older man, well, he was then, and a bigger face. So, because I've always said this, if you've got a big fat face, you don't want someone with a fat face to have raking gore wounds. You need someone who's got a very thin face so you can build up on it to then rake in. You've got a big face to begin with, then to put the makeup on, it's going to be even bigger head. And Bill Hinsman looks ridiculous, and it has other scenes as well. It is not a good version. It's a curio, but it was unnecessary. Now, so they made no money out of this, and also really naff distribution deals. The Walter Reed organisation were convinced by footage that, yeah, okay, we'll distribute this, and but they failed to see how big the film was actually going to be. So they just booked it into drive-ins when they should have booked thousands of cinemas across the United States, but they didn't do that. But the film, other theatres were asking for it, but the deal was they didn't make any money out of it. And Romero and John Russo and the Striners and everybody were like, fucking hell. But the accolades came thick and fast. The crowds were loving it. Many were disturbed, appalled. A lot of critics turned on it because of its visceral violence and its nihilistic ending. The black hero gets shot by renegade, redneck, white posse. They read too much into that. And Romero said I wasn't making any political statements. I wasn't saying anything about race, bigotry and prejudice. That wasn't the point. The point, it could have been anyone. Ben was truck driver, and he could have been any ethnicity. It didn't matter. That didn't come into it. But I wanted him to die in this bleak, absolute failure of justice at the end of the movie. So the audiences don't leave feeling happy and, oh, well, we got a happy conclusion there. Go home, have pizza, have a few beers, but all right. The Well's great. No, The Well isn't great, and his film reflects that. Roger Ebert, the great critic Roger Ebert, wrote a very scathing review of Night of the Living Dead, which people often hark back to and say, oh, he hated it. You need to read it properly. He saw it with a drive-in audience of kids, and he watched the reaction this film and those scenes of cannibalism and the violence were having, and the whole pervading atmosphere of dread was having all the kids. And he was reviewing the effect the film had on other audience members, which was appalling, nasty, and he didn't recommend it. He wasn't talking about the film itself. And then when the film became, within 2 years, became a legend already, and the Museum of Arts, United States, put Night of the Living Dead, a cultural zeitgeist movie. We're going to put it into this National Museum of Art. So Roger Ebert then, actually, it's a great film. It's problematic. It's provocational, and it confronts issues, but it's daring and it's independent and it's clever and intelligently written and directed. He kind of, thing is, he didn't knock the film to begin with. He knocked the effect it was having on audiences. Not quite the same thing. But then he came out defending it, and a lot of critics did that. They did an about face because everyone else is loving it. Did I not see something of value in it? And of course, the film became an absolute classic. It made a lot of money, but as I said, not for Romero and co. Romero said of it, like, I learned a very valuable lesson making Night of the Living Dead about distribution deals. He didn't learn it very well. Did the same thing with the Crazies. He did the same thing with Dawn of the Dead. And he made nothing out of them. You're like, oh my God. The great big bear that is Gory George was a lovable guy. Creative. Loved all his cast and crew. Loved the fans. And gave them what they wanted. But he didn't have the best, shrewdest business mind. And he trusted the wrong people as well. People who didn't really understand the product he was delivering. It'd be a different story nowadays, of course. He'd be hero worshipped, which he was to a huge degree, but not by other producers, other film studios, and other distributors who didn't know how to work his product at all in those early days. The soundtrack to the film is capital high Q library tracks. Romero was a big fan of using library tracks, so all his first few movies have got this. Night and Dawn especially. The DeWolf library of music for Dawn of the Dead is outstanding. Yes, Goblin supplied a lot of music as well, but the library tracks are most of the score, and it's exquisite stuff. I've got all of that music, and I've got all the score for Night of the Living Dead. Now, they used the capital high Q library, and it's kind of bizarre. This stuff had been used in like sci-fi shows and movies and horror stuff before, and would be used again. But it was Carl Hardman, who plays Harry Cooper, who mixed it all together, meshed some tracks together, and would add some electronica, especially at the start of the movie where they're driving up to the cemetery, and the infamous Last Supper where they're eating the remains of Tom and Judy. Electronica over that buzzing, throbbing noise. He created those elements. So the film does not have a score. It has a soundtrack, a patchwork, a Frankenstein's monster, a quilt of music. But it works. I wish I was playing it now, but as you know, I still haven't got access to my bloody playlist. I've got the music on my phone and on the PC. Official download, of course. None of your bootleggy stuff here. And I wish I was playing it. But in many ways, this score to The Last Man on Earth by Bert Scheffner and Paul Sortel for the Vincent Price take on The Last Man on Earth, I Am Legend, is very fitting. It has moments and an atmosphere which is very similar to that conjured up by the Night of the Living Dead soundtrack. So it'll do nicely. And it's of that period as well. So there we go. Of course, the film was remade in 1990 by Tom Savini, of all people. And the now late great Tony Todd, who died only literally a matter of days ago, and I did a big tribute to him as well on the channel. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. Forever Candyman. But also he played Ben in the remake, and the remake twists things. Barbara, I forget the name of the girl who plays her now in the remake. She's not in a catatonic trance. She's not, in a shell. She's proactive. She's gung-ho, and she actively joins the posse at the end, and she's shooting zombies and getting involved in the whole thing. She's really proactive. And Ben, of course, is not a human at the end of it. Ben is a zombie, and he will get his head blown apart. Everyone decries the fact that Savini's take on it is not as gory as his other Romero movies, Dawn and Day especially, Creepshow. And it's very restrained, and there are reasons for this. The production crew said, look, we want to respect what Romero did. It's very tame by today's standards, Night of the Living Dead. So we wanted to reflect that by not going OTT. Well, that flies in the face of what Tom Savini himself has said, because he shot for like a hard R or unrated cut. And part of his contract in any movie he made during the 70s and 80s and 90s, I get an uncut print, an uncut copy of that movie. Whatever gets released nationwide or internationally, I get a full uncut copy for myself. My effects are in there. So the way he shot it and the effects he put into it were a lot nastier, but they're all taken out. It's particularly bloodless, to be honest. But you do see a bit more of Ben's, the whole Beekman's diner. You see a bit more of that. And It's a great version. It really is a cool version of the story. Remakes are these things where if you're going to tell that story again, don't do it beat for beat. There's no point. Try and do something a bit different. Be respectful, pay homage to it. Don't just rip the piss out of it and exploit it for your own gains. Tell it in a different way, and it works. It is a great companion piece to Night of the Living Dead. Shot in colour, beautifully shot as well. Just don't get the Twilight Time version on blue, because that is wrong. The colour timing is way off. It's very blue. It was that era when a lot of Blu-rays had the timing done wrong, and they always said like, oh, the cinematographer came in and proved it all. Oh, shut up. That happened with Halloween. That happened with, forget, Lord of the Rings. For God's sake, the teal. Lord of the Teal. And the best version of Night of the Living Dead to get would be the Criterion version, where the film stuff, it can look, on many versions, it looks really low rent, low grade, really grainy and indistinct and blurred in some cases. The Criterion one, which is out right now, is glorious to behold. Thick shadows, but great detail and definition all across the board. The film was cut when it came out. The Walter Reed organisation demanded cuts to it, which really infuriated the hell out of George Romero. And they made some really clumsy cuts as well. There's a sequence down in the basement, and you'll notice it, an invisible jump cut. Harry and Helen are talking, squabbling again, using this archly melodramatic dialogue. Look, Harry, you and me can't live together, but we sure as hell shouldn't die together. Meaning, don't be trapped down in the basement. And it's the moment where Tom says, Ben's found a TV up here, better get up here again. And what they do, because there's a lot more dialogue between Helen and Harry, Walter Reed went, nah, let's cut all this melodramatic shit out. We don't need any of this. So a good few minutes of interplay between them was cut right there. So what you get, they cut to another shot, I think, of, what did he do? No, they just cut the scene, but it's in mid-sentence, and it just jumps abruptly. The shot's the same, but a massive cut of dialogue is gone. And it's like really glaring. You haven't lost any gore, but you've lost a few more shots of zombies. There was a great sort of, on one of the outside TV broadcasts, Romero filmed, like the posse was there, a line of, guys with guns, helicopter going overhead, and you've got a massive line of zombies on the horizon, marching steadily towards, well, shambling steadily towards their human victims. But it was an epic shot, and he said they cut that out. And he said they replaced that shot with another, it's one of the TV broadcasts, he said they replaced that shot where they're talking about they're eating the victims with another shot of Tom and Judy being munched in the field outside. And he said it was it showed the scale of the attack that was still heading their way, with only a thin line of rednecks standing between them. The TV studio that you see on the TV broadcast, which gives up the names of emergency stations, doctors and sports halls and National Guard centres. If you can, get in the vehicle and get to one of these rescue centres and they'll look after you. There'll be armed guards there, there's food there, they'll help you, medical assistance. They keep flashing up these names of these rescue centres. Well, where they filmed all those TV broadcast moments was actually in the Image 10. No, it was Carl Hardman's own office. Carl Hardman, Harry, they used his office, the Hardman Productions, for that. And the basement is actually shot in the basement of Image 10, their own real life basement, where in their offices, George Romero and Co.'s office, that's the basement there. Everything else is filmed in that cemetery, the real life cemetery, and that real life farmhouse. That farmhouse, which was scheduled for destruction, demolition. Initially, at the end, it wasn't going to be a bonfire. They were going to set the farmhouse on fire. And Romero and Co. said to the owners of it, who didn't want it anymore, it was, they're going to blow it up, burn it, demolish it, whatever. He said, we'll burn it. And he went, okay, it's going to cost you $6,000 to do that. And he's like, well, you're going to do it anyway. And we're going to do it for you for nothing. So just let us, no, you're making this movie, we want every penny out of you, which is pushing their budget up again even further. So that's why the farmhouse didn't get burned down in the film. It is the bonfire outside. But these people, they're just pure fucking merciless, aren't they? I have to go and get my tooth extracted in, well, less than an hour. So I'm going to have to wind this up, folks. Now, and there's so much more to talk about. The performances, the score, the gore. Romero shot this film. He was a cinematographer as well. He edited it. You know, he did everything on this movie. But it was a collaborative effect because everyone else, all the cast and crew, all gave up chunks and chunks of their free time. They're all working day jobs as well to come and work on this. And it did. They shot in July, then November, and then in January. But of course, in July there was all leaves on the trees. In November and at the start of 1968, January, the breath, you could see the breath coming out, condensing in the air because it was freezing cold. So Romero actually instructed all his actors, try to stop breathing. Breathe only when you have to, when you're outside, because you can't afford that. And I think they do it pretty well. And in fact, I don't think you notice that the trees are threadbare during certain shots. I think you're all right with that. It passes muster. The truck explosion, that entire truck sequence, it's infamous, it's notorious, and you're awaiting this because you know what's going to happen. And you're like, oh god! But when you watch it, it's over in the blink of an eye. From them getting out the farmhouse, getting in the truck, getting over there, zombies converging, little bit of fire, wheels on fire, drive off, boom, that's it. It's that I've done it in real time. That's how it happens. That's how quick it actually is. So a great pivotal moment in the movie, which marks the fact that, look, no one's going to get out of here alive. If anything is going to show that, it's them getting blown up and immolated and then eaten, and then poor Helen getting troweled to bits. That's it. It's over. The film, of course, spawned its own legendary sequels, which Romero didn't anticipate. And its legacy, George Grau, Spanish, Italian, German, French co-production of The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, which I've reviewed. It's one of my favourite zombie movies. It's this, like Living Dead, but in colour and even gorier. Disembowelings, breasts being pulled off. Oh god, it's a right nasty piece of work. So nasty, in fact, that it was banned in the UK. I was there when... Hold on a second, hold on. False alarm, folks. I've got the old Betamax copy of The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, the UK edition, under the title just The Living Dead. I've got it, I've shown it on video before, and I thought it was in the other room, and it's not. I've took it back upstairs. Oh, bloody hell. I was going to just show you that just for the sake of it. But I was there when the police raided a shop called Exclusively Beta and removed that from the shelves whilst I was there. And I was good friends with that shop. I bought out most of their stock in the end. And even as a kid, on my YTS money. But they came in, they seized loads of things. And they went along the shelves and just looked for things with provocative cover imagery. So even things like The Pit, which is the pits, you've got big breasts on it and the clawy hands coming out. They went, oh, and it's all colourful and lurid, like EC Comics style. Nope, we're having that. They would take anything that just looked like it could be nasty. The Purge. And we're living in a world like that now again. God, we need a zombie apocalypse. We do. But yeah, so they were dead at Manchester Morgue, and obviously Dawn of the Dead. Then Lucio Fulci with Zombie Flesh Eaters and his other zombie cycle. But a lot of only Flesh Eaters is actually sort of Romero style zombies. The rest of his movies, like The Beyond, City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery, they're more supernatural, but they're still grisly as hell, but they're still supernatural. The Romero zombies, you don't know what's caused it. You're never going to know. Venus Probe, if you want to believe that, I think it exists in this movie as just a potential, but it's more of a red herring than anything else. But if you want to cling to that belief, you can. A lot of reviewers and writers about the film do still cling to it, but it is what it is. But folks, that is Night of the Living Dead. A film I've been bigging up for quite a while now. I said I was going to do this big video. And even now, it's not quite what I wanted to do, but I have to get it done. I have to go on. So when I become a zombie, I'll be less able to do all the big nasty chomping and gnashing because I'm losing one of the big molars on the top, the big crucial buggers that do all the real gnawing. Oh God, I'm going to miss it. But Night of the Living Dead, a seminal masterpiece, a classic. It far exceeds its threadbare, low-budget exploitation roots. It's a much bigger, more ambitious film than that. By being condensed, by having little trick bits to a TV studio, and then that great moment in Washington DC, that's brilliant. That is just, for literally a 90-second sequence, it's magisterial. It broadens everything about this story. And just hearing, they're kind of funny, the TV and radio broadcasts, because they're getting reports which are clearly preposterous, but they're devouring their victims. Is this right? Did you write this? But they're delivering it in sort of that old sort of 50s and 60s deadpan TV, newsreader fashion. There's no real emotion there, and everyone's got glasses and suits on and ties and all that. Like, they're all a lot older than the presenters you'd have today. It's great seeing Chilly Billy there, whose daughter Laurie Cardille would be in Day of the Dead, Sarah. And the succession of, the black hero throughout his movies, the zombie cycle, is brilliant. And the ragtag punitive survivors who simply cannot get along. They're always going to bicker and argue. Our boys and girl in Dawn of the Dead do really well. They do really, really well. Initial animosities, Flyboy and Peter, they work it all out. But then the bloody bikers converge. We don't like people who don't share. You just fucked up real bad, and there they are. Come on, man. That's a professional army. Looks like they've been surviving on the road all through this thing, There's 1,000 zombies down there. They'll get in. They'll move the trucks. It's brilliant. But again, showing man cannot coexist in times of dire extremis. Only when you've got authority and rule of law do people in emergency disaster zones work together, because you have authority in the form of rescue teams who are still governed by law and order. Once you've lost that and it all breaks down, it's game over. It's every man for himself. And Day of the Dead really, really personifies that. Although it also works about the scientific brigade to not get on with the industrial military complex, which it never has done and never will do. And films always reflect that. You go back to The Thing from Another World, 1951, Howard Hawks, Christian Nyby, James Arness as a great big lumbering alien in a big flight suit with thorn fingers, military, science. No, they don't get along, No one's going to side with the other one. We're going to kill this thing, but we're going to protect it. And this has always been the case. Day of the Dead, you've got Dr. Logan, Dr. Frankenstein, who's working with the zombies. He's feeding them the remains of the other soldiers who've been killed, feeding them. And you're not giving me any results, Dr. Frankenstein, Because they can't work it out. They're never going to work out why the dead are coming back to life. And they can't cure them because they're dead. And the fact that they're bleeding, I've always said this, why are zombies bleeding? If their heart, they only bleed if blood is pumping through their veins. And blood's only going to pump through their veins if their heart is pumping, right? And the heart's going to pump when it's oxygenated. That means your lungs are working. If your heart and your lungs are working and your circulatory system's working, then you're not dead, are you? You're not fucking dead. So the zombies, the head's getting blown apart. And even in Day of the Dead, where they're much gnarlier, it doesn't matter. We want to see more, but it doesn't make any sense. But you have to forget about that. But in Night, it's just happened. So they're just freshly reanimated. So yeah, they could. You can get around it that way. It's just chocolate syrup, for God's sake. Right, folks, I have been always shall be Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, and it's ever, don't go down the basement in between time. Please keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all. Albeit I won't be quite the Kilt-Man I once was. I'll be missing a very crucial part of my anatomy. Folks, be careful. Lock your doors. Bolt the windows. No, bolt the doors, lock the windows. Let's get that bit right. and always keep one bullet for yourself. If in doubt, put one in your own brain, because you don't want to be coming around and walking around like that, do you?